And welcome back. It's 2:23 in the afternoon. You're watching Good Afternoon Britain with me, Emily, and Tom. Now, before the break, we were discussing police in the UK who could be given brand new powers to arrest protesters covering their faces to threaten others and avoid criminal prosecution in some cases.
It's also emerged that protesters will no longer be able to cite the right to protest as a reasonable excuse to get away with disruptive offences, such as blocking roads.
Well, who better to speak to than a Just Stop Oil spokesperson, who is Sean Irish. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Now, Just Stop Oil likes to protest, of course. That's what we all know them for best. And blockading roads can sometimes be in the Just Stop Oil repertoire. What do you make of this decision by the Home Secretary to clamp down on this type of thing?
I mean, it's another desperate attempt for the Tories to try and polarise an issue. The police already have powers which they know that they can use. They've been using them for months, if not years. This is just terrifying. I mean, when you're talking about face masks, these are, we've just come out of COVID. Everyone's used to wearing face masks. This is not saying someone's committing a crime.
Well, we're not talking about surgical masks. You know the type of mask I'm talking about here. The intimidating, black face coverings across your whole face, usually accompanied by a hoodie, usually accompanied by a rather intimidating person.
I mean, what will you consider intimidating? I may not. This is the thing, it's opinion. So why should the police be arresting based on their opinion? Let's be very clear about this. A lot of people wear masks at protests for their own safety, right? They wear the mask because, unfortunately, people who follow GB News and all these different things like to highlight people on camera, and then they end up losing their jobs.
So it's our fault they're wearing masks, because we shine a light on some protests?
Because of the way the news depicts these protests, we have seen peaceful marches week after week after week after demonstration. We had the former Home Secretary successfully get a hate march on Whitehall because she riled up the far right to the point that they were terrified that the left were coming after the cenotaph, which was never a plan, it was never going to happen. It was just a way to rile up the right and get people scared and people terrified. People wearing face masks is the least the Tories need to worry about.
Sean,
they need to worry about the next election.
We've also seen people, to be fair, we've also seen people on the streets calling for things like jihad. So the police didn't clamp down too hard on that. It was very much retrospective. So perhaps had they had these new powers granted to them, they would have been able to deal more swiftly with that type of extremism.
Can you specify how a law saying you cannot wear a face mask would affect someone who's saying jihad?
Well, there may well have been people there who were wearing such masks.
OK, so, for example, if I go up and I smash a window wearing a face mask, will the police arrest me or not arrest me because I'm wearing a face mask?
I think the police probably should arrest you because you're smashing a window.
Exactly. If a crime is in place, the police already have the powers to step in. This is my point.
There have been some people who've caused criminal damage in the past who've been let off. There have been some judges who, for example, the people that tore down the statue of Edward Colston in Bristol, they were let off in the legal proceedings. I suppose the government is going after a sense from the public that that the state has been a bit too lax when it comes to enforcing the law that already exists.
I would agree. They are definitely short on lax on enforcing the laws that are already in place. There's green policies that they are supposed to be following. They signed up to COP28. They signed up to the Paris Accord agreement, and they have failed every single step.
Have they failed? Carbon budgets have been in place since the Climate Change Act, and every single year this country has met those carbon budgets. Other countries haven't. The UK is the first G7 country in the history of the world to, since 1990, halve our emissions. No other G7 country has done that.
OK, and does that resolve the climate crisis? We've got to be very, very clear about this. The UK claims to want to be a world leader.
We are a world leader.
Just Stop Oil and other protest groups only do what we do because the government is failing. In 2018, the UK government was handed a dossier of information of crimes that were being committed. The Metropolitan Police refused to investigate those crimes. They are now starting to, but let me be very clear. Before one foot stepped on the road from Extinction Rebellion, Just Stop Oil, Insulate Britain, all of these, we tried to go down the proper due process. But because politicians decide who's going to be charged...
The politicians are on your side, though. The politicians have been taxing carbon.
As you've just said yourself, just quite previously, even Sir Keir Starmer is not on our side. He is failing. He has let down the left.
Sean,
he has not done what he's supposed to do. Democracy is failing us, and we need action.
The unfortunate truth for your movement is that you've actually become a bit of a laughing stock even amongst your target audience of millennials and Gen Z.
I mean, we're currently more popular than the Tory party, so...
Flicking through TikTok and, you know, other social media apps where young people are on, they are mocking you openly.
Well, this is the thing with the internet, which hopefully you would know, Emily, being a journalist.
But these
if you look up what you want...
right-wing, oil-loving people. They just think that actually Just Stop Oil are making a bit of a embarrassment of themselves at times, don't you think?
Well, it depends on what you define as embarrassing. I mean, protesting by its very definition...
Well, gluing your hand to the road or blockading bridges where people need to get to work or to hospitals or wherever else, that sort of thing is perhaps a bit embarrassing.
I mean, I think it's embarrassing that our government has let it go this far. The fact that they see it necessary, I mean, we can see it all over the world at the moment. People are rising up for different issues. The very fact of the matter is unless the government steps up and does its job, protest will not go away. Banning face masks, banning language, you know, these are really draconian measures. You'd think GB News, the People's Channel, the free speech channel, would be defending. But you're so caught up in it that you want to be the devil's advocate, that you're actually defending the most authoritarian laws that we have seen in the UK in generations. And GB News, the People's Channel, is defending them.
To be clear, GB News has no corporate view on this. We hear voices from all different perspectives. But you did raise this issue of the £28 billion of investment that the Labour Party wanted to do. Now they're pulling out of it today, we suspect, although they haven't formally announced this. What do you think is behind this motivation of the Labour Party rowing back from some of their biggest climate commitments? Perhaps climate change policies aren't as popular as some people say they are.
I think whether you're as far left as me or as far right as Jacob Rees-Mogg, we both agree government is useless. The government is not acting in the interest of the people, and it has not for a very long time. We need system change, we need democracy, we need a constitution.
So this is about bringing down capitalism and having some kind of left-wing utopia. Cough, cough.
Do I look like a communist?
Well, you just said you were far left.
You do not have to be a communist to be far left.
Well, no, but this is about more than just the climate. This is about restructuring, as you say, the system. What exactly does that mean?
I mean democracy. I mean, when your vote, if you vote in London, it should be equal to my vote in a different county. I am saying that we should have citizens' assemblies. I am saying that we should have actual democracy.
So we do have a citizens' assembly.
Oh,
it's called Westminster. There are 650 equal constituencies across the UK.
That is the House of Commons.
Where individuals can elect people to represent them. Why is a citizens' assembly, an unelected parallel parliament, better?
So, as you may notice, I have a lot of experience in court. Do you know why they used a... Oh, my God, my brain.
A jury?
Jury. Do you know why they use a jury?
Well, it's perceived to be fair.
And it's picked out randomly from the population?
Yes.
Now, citizens' assemblies already exist. We have them in Ireland. They are picked out randomly from the population, from all walks of life, which means you don't just get people like me on the left.
Sean, you might be surprised that if you did have your wish of a citizens' assembly, that people might not be on board with your ideas.
And you might be right,
so
but let's let democracy decide.
No,
but it's not picking people randomly is the opposite. Democracy is when people vote.
Yes, you still vote in a citizens' assembly.
Sean, it's been a lively conversation, always a pleasure, never a chore. Thank you very much. Just Stop Oil spokesperson Sean Irish, who has been in court, he says, Sean, a few times.
Yeah, perhaps more than a few. But our expert panel will be back very shortly. We'll be discussing whether Brits care more about the climate or the economy. Or perhaps sometimes, to some people, they're the same thing. This comes, of course, with the Labour news that they might well scrap their green pledges. That's all coming up after the headlines with Sophia.